Hi everyone, welcome to our MOOC this evening. In this one-off session, we will be hearing all about project management with NatWest. Hi everyone, welcome to our MOOC this evening. Sorry about that. Backstage today, you have me, Krupa from Code First Girls. I am a Code First Girls brand ambassador. A little bit about me, I am a PhD student studying computational biology, so I use genetics and I use data analysis such as Python and R. I've been a brand ambassador for around half a year now, so if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I will try and answer them as the session goes along. We're really delighted to have NatWest join us for our interesting session today. We have Chandni, who will be our presenter today. So just a little bit of background. Chandni is a product manager at Faculty, which is a company that specializes in AI and machine learning. Previously, Chandni has worked in a consultancy where she primarily did product management at a multinational FTSE 100 company. She studied modern languages at Bath University and has now transitioned fully into tech after completing 2 of our Code First Girl courses. So after the main content today, we'll be joined by Charlie, who is a product owner at NatWest and is passionate about technology to simplify processes and make life a little bit easier. So currently working on the innovative PayIT product, Charlie manages 3 feature teams and works collaboratively with key stakeholders and customers to build a product. If you have any questions at any point, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try and answer them during the end of the session. As a final point, Code First Girls will have other MOOCs running this autumn, which are a great way to gain key technical insight and understanding of concepts from experts. The YouTube video for this will be up for around a week or 2 after the session today, so if you'd like to rewatch the content, you can do so just by clicking the same link. So for now, I would like to add Chandni onto the stream, and she'll give you the Product Management 101.
Thanks, Krupa. Thanks for that introduction. Hey, everyone. It's so exciting to be here. Super excited to present to you. So I will start by just sharing my screen. And hopefully you can see that. Cool. All right, so as Krupa mentioned, today's course will be on product management. And I think the term product management has gone around quite a lot over the last few years. And I think, if I may say so, there's been a lot of hype around like, wow, what is product management? It's this cool new role. So I'm really excited to be kind of telling you all about it. So let me jump into the slides. So the session today will look a little bit like this. I'll start off with a bit of an introduction as to what actually constitutes a product. I'm sure we all basically know, but we'll just start off with that, and then a bit more around what actually makes a product manager, what makes a good product manager. Straight from that into what does the product team at a company look like, and then talking a bit more about frameworks that you can use and kind of approaches you can take in your day-to-day as a product manager. Then we'll talk a bit about a super cool case study. I'll give you a spoiler. It's going to be about the way Apple does product management. And then any questions you guys might have at the end, and then I will close. So let's jump straight into what is a product. So I'm assuming you all came here to learn more about products within tech, but I think kind of starting with what even is a product just outside of tech. All of these things are actually products, and they all basically answer a need that users have or something that a human wants to achieve. All of these things help a user to achieve those things. So with the washing powder in the top left, we want to be able to wash our clothes, right? We want to be able to clean them so they look clean and they smell good. So the answer to that is this product. Ariel's a product. We want to be able to get from A to B. We want to get there quickly. So a car is a product, which is an answer to that. There are, of course, different ways that you can answer things like, hey, as a user, I want to get from A to B. How can I do that? And a car is just one product as an example. Of course, there are other things like a bike, a train, etc. So these are all products. Basically, most things that we use in our day-to-day are products. I'm using the laptop right now, that's a product. The key thing to keep in mind is users have needs and products answer those needs. So let's move on to products actually within tech. So they are usually pieces of software, and they aim to answer or to serve a specific customer need. So let's pick one example. So let's pick Instagram. So as a user, I want to be able to share pictures with my friends online. How can I do that? And that's where Instagram comes in as, hey, here's a product that you can use. There are a bunch of different other products as well. So you can do the same thing with Facebook, which also answers a need that users have. Or if we look at the Deliveroo example, my need is that I want to be able to order different cuisines of food and I want it delivered to my house. Deliveroo obviously noticed that gap or that user need, and they decided, hey, why don't we develop this app or build this product which is able to serve the needs of those customers who want food delivered to their houses. So hopefully you see that we all have needs, and these products within tech aim to answer the needs that we have. And there are companies, like you probably know that there are like startups constantly popping up out of nowhere, and the aim that they have is to find a gap in the market. A user need that's been unanswered is like a treasure chest, like, hey, this group of people need this. Is there something that we can build to serve that user need? And just a bit of information for the text on the right. So I've kind of gone over, like, people have needs and wants all of the time. A product is the thing that actually enables the delivery of that need. So I want to listen to music anytime. Oh, hey, there's Spotify, there's YouTube, there's kind of Apple Music. These are all the products which answer the need that we as customers have. And I'm sure you might have heard that when people talk about products, they also talk a lot about services. You might have heard kind of software as a service, like what even is that? So products and services, they often have a lot of overlap, but from a very high level perspective, you can think about a product as a thing that's tangible. It's kind of like a piece of code that's been built into an app and you can use it. Whereas a service often relies on like humans to be able to help with various parts of it. So an example of this, and also a thing can be a product and a service meshed together. So let's think about Uber, for example. So I, as a user, I want to get from A to Z. There's another answer to that need is Uber. So the service it's providing is it's connecting me, the customer, to drivers. And you're having that human input from the driver who's actually taking me to the B that I want to get to. The Uber app is actually the product that's kind of enabling that service to happen. So the service is the human input part, which is it's connecting me to another human who is helping me to achieve my need. The app is the thing that's linking all of this together. It's the software that ties in and helps meet our user needs. So just the caption at the top to conclude on this section, software, it's a piece of software which usually aims to serve a specific customer need and has often overlap with services. So just to get us all kind of thinking a bit about products and just out of pure interest, I'd love to know what your favorite tech products are. So if you type in to slido.com, and then you should have a little pop-up which allows you to enter a code. So if you just enter 299637, we should be able to see what you guys think. So go for it. I'll give you just a couple of minutes to get started with that. And I will share my screen with the votes. Let me just have a look. Are people able to, Krupa, can you confirm, are people able to access the link?
Yes, everyone's able to access the link. You can see it on the Slido.
Awesome. That's really cool. Awesome. So let me share my tab so you guys can see what you can see. So, right, there we go. Awesome. So we have Netflix, we have smart TVs. iPhone is the big one, clearly. I think I probably would have put something Apple related as well. Instagram, to-do apps, wireless headphones, Deliveroo. Notion. Now that's an interesting one. I've just started using Notion myself. It's proving to be pretty good. Clue app, smart TV. Awesome. City Mapper. That's a great one. Definitely has saved me many a times. So I'll leave that poll live. It's interesting to see the ones that are the biggest. So iPhone, Netflix, Instagram, Notion. So yeah, super interesting. We can keep this up. So if people want to keep voting on that, do continue. So let me just go to my other screen. And it's also great that we had kind of a mix of both like tech products. So we had apps and we also had like physical products. So I saw wireless headphones there as well. This is awesome. So that is brilliant. Now, the next part I want to jump into is what is the difference between like product management and project management? And that's a question I also had when I started my role as a product manager. And there are a lot of similarities, but there are a lot of nuances and a lot of differences. So I'll start with product management to begin with. So a product is usually something that can be permanent. It can keep on getting better. It can keep being iterated on. It can keep like new features can be kept being added to it until it's decommissioned. That is to say, until users stop using it. Maybe there's a new competitor, so this other product is no longer used by people. But if people do keep paying for it, it can keep on going and getting better, and it can go on forever. Like I think Instagram's been around for a long time. Facebook's been around for a while. A lot of these like apps just keep adding new features. I think an example being like Instagram. I keep mentioning that as the example, is definitely the one I use the most. So when I first joined Instagram many years ago, like it was pretty simple. Like you upload a photo, people can like it. It's quite, now I think about it, basic functionality. Now there are things like you can obviously upload videos, you can have Instagram lives, you can kind of DM people. So it can keep on going, and who knows, like in the next couple of years, what new features Instagram as a product would have. And next point, so a product usually has like a long-lived feature team. So say you've created an app, and on that app, you have a messages center. And on the app, you can also do like uploading photos. So you could potentially imagine within that app company, a team that works on the messages center. They are solely focused on how can we make messaging seamless with the users of this app. Then you could have another team who's working on how do we make sure users can upload photos as seamlessly as possible. So you could have teams which work on different features of the app or of the piece of software. And there's iterative planning, which is basically you just it's linked to the first point where you kind of just keep on going. So you can say, all right, for the next month, we want to focus on allowing users to send messages as quickly as possible. We don't want character limits. Like, let's just focus on that and park everything else aside. Then next month, let's do this. And it's very iterative, and it's dependent on user needs. So you can imagine going out to speak to users and figuring out what do our users actually care about. Like, there's no point spending a bunch of time improving like the Reels feature if more people are worried about like the messaging center. So it's very iterative, and it's very dependent on the needs of the user. Continual improvements. So you might have noticed when you download an app on the App Store, or you're updating an app, sorry, and it tells you like the list of things that in this version, like in version 4.1.1, we've now added this, this, and this, and we've fixed these, and we've made key improvements. Those are examples of continual improvements. Like, they could just leave it unfixed, and that could probably mean the end of the product if you're not going to fix kind of bugs and issues and make it as good as it can for your users. So there's an element of thinking about how can we make this better and better and better, and how can we fix it so that it's working as it should, basically. Evolving customer needs. So users won't always want the same thing. You can imagine, like a couple of years ago, all I would want to do is upload a picture and share it with people in my friends network. Now I want to like go on holiday and live stream to like my friends and family, like, hey, I'm on this beach, have a look at it. So customer needs change and change over time. So that's why it's super important, and I'll talk a bit about it later, that you keep talking to your target market, you keep talking to the customers who are using your app or using like the software that you've built, and you're very aware of their customer needs. And the last point, the phrasing is a little bit strange, but basically when you have a product, how can you figure out if the product is successful? You can create these things called key performance indicators. So these can be things like, we have a growing customer base, we have more people interacting with the new features, and you can even set targets to say, by the end of the year, I want to have like 1,000 people using, or 1,000 more people using this app that I've built. So you're kind of depending on like these key performance indicators to prove to you that, yeah, your app's doing well or it's not doing so well. And that's slightly different to how you measure success on a project. So I'll talk a bit about project management now. So projects usually have a beginning date and an end date. So we can say, we're going to start this project on the 1st of January and I want to finish it by the end of March. That's like the piece of work. You have a team that's usually staffed to work on a project, and it depends on the needs of the project. So if let's select a random example. If you're writing a book about something, and there are people who have a bunch of expertise within about this topic that you want to write this book on, there's your project team. You say, we're going to start on this date and I want it published by this date. There's your project. You've got your team, all the experts about the topics you want to write about. You get the group together and you do some upfront planning. So you say, hey, let's like break it down chapter by chapter. You guys take this one, you guys take this, and you guys take that. And that's effectively planning. And then after we've all done these things, we will have reached the point where we are ready to publish the book. So it's very defined, usually. It's one-off delivery. So a project is usually a one-off thing. Of course, you can do a project multiple times, or you can do a different version of a project multiple times. So you can kind of do that. But if you were to do a project and then you do a similar one, that one would have had to have ended for you to then start this one, set the start date, set the end date, and select the team that you want to work on this project with. Projects also have requirements. So you could say, for like the book example, the requirements are, we all need to have a computer, and that's how we're going to achieve this, and we need to have a printer. Those are your project requirements, and if we have that, if we stick to the plan and we have our dates, we will be successful by the end of this very specific date. And the investment delivers on scope means the success is measured in product by the KPIs, which I spoke about. Whereas with the project, it's a little bit more around, did we do what we said we would do at the start of the project? Did we manage to publish this book within the 3-month timeline that I set? And that's the scope of the project, and that's usually how you measure success. Did we do what we said we would do? Now, of course, you can have project management within a product. Like many tech companies do have product managers and project managers, because the skills are very complementary. And you sometimes you do need a bit of project management like if you're doing a sprint or you're working on a very specific thing within a product, it's very useful to use some of the aspects of project management. So those are basically the differences between the two. So now kind of zooming in a bit more onto the product manager. As a product manager who's sitting within a company, you're usually sat just in this like middle intersection where you're talking to customers a lot, you're interacting with kind of developers, engineers on a day-to-day basis as well, and you're also thinking about the wider company, the wider business as a whole. So you're just pinpointed right there in the middle. And for this reason, there are a bunch of skills that are super important, like you're talking to different people all of the time. you have to adapt the way you're able to have those conversations to make sure you're getting what you need, and the people you're interacting with are also getting what they need. So let's pick a couple of these. So communication is one of those skills. If you're able to speak to kind of the front end engineer who's working on the product in a way that's valuable to them, like what do they care about, what do they want to know, what's important to them, it's going to be very different to how you're going to go to a customer and say, hey customer, like tell me what you care about, tell me what are your pain points when it comes to using this app. So you have to adapt the style depending on which part of this large group of people you have to work with, depends who you're talking to, you have to adapt your style. So that's super important. Another one that I really like is curiosity. So it's something that people like naturally have. It's not like you have to go away and study how to be curious. If you like asking questions, like product management is a great option for you, because your job is to find out stuff, and you do that by asking a bunch of questions. Like, as I said with the customer, hey customer, what do you care about? What do you struggle with when you're using the app? The business one is, say you have like the CEO in your company and they're very interested in the success of the product. How can you communicate what they care about? Do they want to know, like, hey, we had this one like really technical bug, and we're trying to fix it by doing XYZ? It's unlikely that that's the level they care about. You can ask them, like, what are the important metrics to you? How do you measure success as at the company level? And then you can translate that into like the relevant information as a product manager. So being curious and asking a bunch of questions is honestly, like, I do that basically every day. Most of my day is spent asking everyone lots and lots of questions. That's super important. I won't go through all of these, obviously, but let's pick another one, maybe prioritize. So an ability to prioritize is super, super important as a product manager, because if you, for example, go and speak to a customer and you say, right, I'm doing some user research with you. I want to know, like, what pain points do you have? What do you like about this app? What do you dislike about this app, etc. They can say a lot of stuff, and they often will say a lot of stuff, and you'll often have this like wish list that they give to you, like, I wish your app did this, I wish your app did that. You have to think, how can I prioritize all of these user needs? Like, I'm not going to, if one person has told me this, I'm not going to change the entire like list of things that I, like for the product just based off of what one person has said. So you have to think about things in what's the most important thing for like a large group of people is like, and that means you have to go and speak to a lot of people, a lot of customers, and then think about the value add, think about how much like effort is required technically from your developers, and then have a good sense of prioritization. And you can also prioritize by getting information from other people. So the company you're working at might have an overall strategy, and that is a super important thing to take into account when it comes to product build as well. And some of the decisions you make around what shall we build next, or what feature shall we build next, you can think about how it can tie into that company strategy. So a good ability to prioritize is really important. And it's not something kind of that I've picked up, I was born with, of course. It takes time, and it's fine to kind of make like mistakes and think, oh, I've picked the wrong thing, like, crap, I don't know what we're supposed to be working on next. To like switch on the curiosity and say, like, let me go and find out. Like that's my job, to just go and find out. Generally what I found is, in a product team, the more you ask people questions and the more valued they feel, the more successful the product will be. People want to feel listened to. And as a product manager, it's your job to kind of get stuff from them in a really in a helpful way. So those are just a bunch of skills which are super useful to have as a product manager. There are, of course, a lot more that you can have. Now, so what are the responsibilities of a product manager? So I've told you a bit about like what even is product management, why is it different to project management, what skills should I have, and now this is a bit more, what are kind of the things I might be doing as a product manager? So looking back at the diagram on the left, like you see customer there, it's a very like large part of your job to be the voice of the user and to understand the user needs, listen to them, and also represent the user as much as you can when it comes to the day-to-day. So you could do this through like user research, like let me organize a group of people who I know are using this app, and let me talk to them, let me see how they use the app. And there are a bunch of ways you can do this user research. You can even, there are large companies have a studio where you are sat behind one screen, you have this big screen, and then you have the users on the other side where they can't see you, but you can see them. Sounds slightly creepy, but you can see how they're interacting. How are they clicking? Where are they clicking first when they go onto your website? Where do they click first when they go onto your app? Once you finish that user session, you'd have a good sense of user needs and what's important to them. It's your role to understand those and represent those in the day-to-day. Second point, it's super important to, as a product manager, be aware of like what's happening in the market. What are my competitors doing? If, for example, you're Uber Eats, you're probably very interested in what new things are Deliveroo doing? How are they getting more customers? How's Just Eat doing it? You want to be able to monitor the market, and you can do this by, honestly, if you just Google, like if you just look on the news, keep up to date with the news, you'd be able to do this like just day to day. And it's often called kind of desk-based research, where you're sat there and you can find out a bunch of stuff just sat at your desk, which is super helpful to kind of the wider product strategy. And with that, you'd be able to figure out, how can I kind of do something better, or how can I meet the user need slightly better than they are doing? So doing like market monitoring and understanding your competitors is a really large part of this, and it's really important. You're also not in charge of defining the vision for the product, but it's your job to kind of figure it out and speak to people and define what the vision for the product actually is. So having a vision for a product, so Instagram, like I want to, like Instagram's vision is probably, I don't know, something like connecting users or connecting people worldwide, or that might be the Facebook one, but you need to have a vision for the product. And this is important for both the users and the team that's working on it, because it gives you kind of a commonality that, hey, we're all working towards this shared vision. It's something that we all really care about, and it brings a sense of cohesion to that team, and also connects you quite nicely to your users. Next, you have aligning stakeholders around that vision. So you've got your vision. You need to speak to people, like, let's look at this, like the business and technology, about that vision. What do they think about it? Are they kind of bought into it as well? And the more they are, the greater the chance of success of the product, if everyone is like working towards this vision. So it's your role to kind of align this group of people, which can be tricky if people have a lot of different opinions. But it's great. It's great if people have different opinions, but as a product manager, it's your job to keep in mind, like, this is the product vision. And again, going back to the prioritization, prioritize like what is actually important right now, what is important to my users right now. So being able to do that, and that's kind of the next point, which is prioritize product features and capabilities. The next thing is creating a product roadmap. So this links into the question I asked before, like, hey, how do I even know what to build next? You have to have a good sense of what's coming up. You know, like, you want to be able to map out, like, by X months, like within the next 6 months, what are the things that we're building? What are we doing in those 6 months? And having that product roadmap is particularly useful for the team that's working on it. And the team often will want to have something like that, so they know, all right, I know exactly what's going on. I know what we've worked on, what we've succeeded at, and this is what's coming up. It's nice to have kind of a sense of what's coming up, definitely. And it's your role as product manager to prioritize the various bits and figure out what that roadmap actually looks like. Then we have measure product success. So this ties into, how do I know if my product is successful? So again, you can set metrics like, by the end of the month, I want to have 10 new people sign up to my app. Or I want to have people engage 2 times more with this new feature that I've built than they did last month. It's when it comes to product success, it's usually, you should center it kind of around the user. What is successful, like, to you is usually what makes the user pleased, or what makes the user want to use the product or the thing that you're offering. And it's a trap to fall into if you think product success is like building a lot of features. It's it's never that, because there's no point in building a lot of features if people aren't going to use them. And it could waste kind of precious engineering time. It could be you could be working on something that users are more likely to use. So product success shouldn't be measured by like the number of features you've built within a year, because they're useless if people aren't going to use them. And lastly, despite the role saying product manager, it's important to remember you're managing like the development of the product, not the team. You want to empower people to make decisions. You want to know, like, hey, my engineers are awesome at what they do, and when it comes to technical decisions, I'm going to leave that with them. And empowering this will make them feel like a valued member of the team. And it's your job as a product manager to make sure everybody who's working on that product feels part of the team and they feel valuable, and like the value they provide is inputted into like decision making. That's super important. So it's important to remember you're not a people manager who comes in and says, you do this, and you do this. It's more, what can we do all together to make this product a success? And let's tap on each of our kind of skills, the skills that we all bring, to make this successful for our users. So after that, this is just a bit of a mini calendar. Like, what does a day in the life of a product manager even look like? This is not my actual calendar, but I mean, it well could be. So usually when it comes to product, you have something that's called a stand-up, and you guys might have done similar things before and might have called them something different, like morning alignment session or daily alignment or daily catch-up, something like that. But in a stand-up, you usually talk about what did you do yesterday, what did you do today, and is there anything that's blocking you from doing the work you need to do today? So that's usually 15 minutes. Everywhere, there's no standard way of doing it, but where I work, we usually kind of just somebody starts and we go in alphabetical order, and we just say literally yesterday, today, and if any blockers. And that's just so everybody knows what the plan is for today. Then you could have a weekly planning session with the tech leads. So I'll talk a bit more about the product team in a second, but there are often tech leads, so somebody who's like a senior front-end developer and somebody who's a senior back-end developer. It's useful to kind of make sure you understand the work that the tech team is doing. You don't have to understand it to the level of detail that they do, but to have a good enough overview, so you just have, like this is what they're working on, and to do that with the tech leads is a really great idea, because you can empower them and they can then go and have their own sessions with other developers in the team. So you could spend kind of a Monday, that's a potential thing to do on a Monday. Customer research I've put there. So it's really important to talk to customers as much and as often as you can. And that's not to say call them up and have a little chat, but it's doing research. If you've released a new feature, asking for like feedback, sending out feedback forms. Customer research doesn't have to be like, let's dial onto a call and let me talk about, like, let's share your screen and show me how you're using the app. It can be something like, gather, like, how can I get feedback on this? That's kind of an easy way for customers to engage with me. So you could spend an hour doing that, and that would be super valuable. Then lunch, of course. And then I've put there one-to-one with a UX designer. So again, I'll talk about the team in a sec, but it's nice to kind of check in with people as a product manager, like how are they finding the work that they're doing? What are they particularly enjoying? What are they not enjoying so much? And just staying close to the team is super important. And you can learn a bunch of stuff from everyone in your team. Honestly, within a product team, you have engineers, designers, etc. There's never a place where you can't learn within a product team. So just catching up with people is always useful. I put a user research session. So now you've done a bit of customer research. Now this is one of those user research sessions where you would probably dial in and you would ask the user, hey, can you share your screen? And I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions like, hey, how would you go about sending a message to somebody? Can you just show me how you would do that? And the user, you can see how they would navigate. What do they click on? What are they struggling with? Do they like use a weird flow? Like, do they go to the home page, then they go to messages? Do they know they can go to messages straight away? Things like that. So, and I put remember to record because I often forget to do that. It's really important when you do a user research session. Now we're working in this in this post-COVID world, to record stuff is really important. And when you watch back a recording from a user research session, you can often see small nuances which you wouldn't have noticed during the conversation. So you might say, hey, why did they kind of do that weird thing? Or why did they scroll down the page like that? So recording with permission is obviously a very useful thing to do. Then as a product manager, you might be asked to do interviews with people who might be interested in joining your product team. So this is obviously, it's a great use of time. Like, you want to build up the team, you want to have somebody who wants to be part of the team and who the team thinks would be a great addition to that team. And then I've just put focus work and metrics reporting. So you've done a bunch of stuff all day and you just need to do some heads down focus work. Of course, there's time to do that. So I've scheduled that in there. And metrics reporting, your company might say to you, like, hey, can you update me every week as to how many users are using the app? So you can imagine you do metrics reporting to say, last week we had this many, this week we've got this many. So something like that is how you could think about wrapping up your day. So that's just a potential day in the life of a product manager. So as you can see, super varied. You're speaking to customers, you're speaking to the team, and you're also spending time just doing focus work and understanding your customers a bit better. So I just want to speak a little bit about like product collateral. What kind of things, what do these things I've mentioned actually look like? So we have the roadmap, which I mentioned, I think, at the start. The roadmap is something that forecasts, this is what the next couple of months look like. It's up to the team how far is useful and valuable to forecast into. So this one is a 6-month roadmap. And you can see that the things in the little boxes seem to be kind of more features or quite like high level priorities. They're not like very granular tasks, like we need to enable the user to be able to pay with a credit card, PayPal, a bunch of these things. It's very like high level, like we need to focus on security, we need to focus on the self-service portal. So the idea for a roadmap is to give you a view into the future of the stuff that's coming up and the stuff that you will be working on. And then we have the product backlog. The backlog is, to put it very simply, a list of tasks. And a list of tasks which basically are things you could add to your product. So it could be things like, we need to add an ability for users to pay for the stuff online on our website with PayPal. And we need to make sure users can sign in using Face ID. Like a bunch of things that you can do, tasks that can be completed for your product. Now, you would have backlogs are usually sorted by the highest priority items go right at the top and the lowest priority items go right at the bottom. High priority, again, it's up to individuals how they want to prioritize things. I usually think about it as like, what is the value to the customer? Is it like high, medium, low? What's the urgency? So if we didn't do that, if we didn't complete this task, what are the implications of that? Could something else break as a result of it? So that's kind of how I think about priority, and also what is the technical effort required, and that's where you need input from your technical teams who can tell you this will actually take a very long time to do, and it might be that the value is not even that high, so that could go further down the backlog. The backlog isn't something where you're like, I have to like do every little thing on this backlog. It's just a place where you list these things, and there are times when you might not even complete some of the tasks, and that's okay. It's very iterative and dependent on customer needs. So that's the backlog. Now, this is the product team, and a bunch of you might actually already be in product teams. So you have the product manager, you have engineers, and the engineers come with different skill sets. So you could have front-end engineers who work more on UI, like what does what the users see actually look like, whereas the back-end engineers would work on how does all of the like data plug into the back of this app that we're building. And you have business analysts. Business analysts usually kind of help with requirements gathering, which is like, what do we need? What should we work on next? Like, how can we figure that out? So they help with that, and they think about stuff with a very like business hat on of what's important to the business, what's critical, things like that. Then you have designers. Let me talk about that one next. So you can have UX designers and UI designers who help to kind of design what the users see and what does that actually look like. And then you have internal stakeholders. So this could be kind of management within a company. It can be kind of the CEO or the CTO or some sort of management within your company, whose buy-in is important to the work that you're doing or who you have to align with. So you're all kind of on the same page about this is the product vision, this is what we're doing towards it. And I've put them, they're not obviously in the day-to-day team, but they are part of the wider product effort and are important people to keep in the loop about that. And then, of course, you have your great customers who want to use your app, who you're talking to, who are, of course, again, not day-to-day within the product team, but it's important to put them here so you kind of remember that you have to keep the customers in mind with basically every product decision you make. So that's basically what a product team looks like. Now I thought I would talk very quickly about kind of the frameworks that you can use within product management. So I'm sure a bunch of you have heard about Agile. So Agile basically includes iterative methodologies. So examples of these are Scrum and Kanban. So Scrum, I have some experience in Scrum, and it's usually where you set you have something that you want to work on within a time box period. So you could say, right, we've got 2 weeks. This is the goal of the sprint being the 2-week period. This is what we want to achieve by the end of those 2 weeks. And within those 2 weeks, you would have things like a sprint planning session with the whole team. Hey, what do we want to achieve in these 2 weeks? How do we want to do that? What does the plan look like? You will also have kind of the daily stand-ups, which I spoke about before. You would also have sprint review. So how's the sprint gone? Like, how is it going? You can have a midpoint check-in. And you've also got the sprint retrospective. And that is, I found, one of the most useful ceremonies within Scrum. At the end of the 2 weeks, the team gets together and they talk about what went well in the last 2 weeks and what didn't go so well, or what can we improve on in the next 2 weeks. And the point of having that approach is just continuous improvement. How can we keep getting better at what we're doing and make sure the next sprint is even better than the last sprint that just went. Another methodology within Agile is Kanban. So Kanban, you can see a little card on the slide. You have your to-do list, which is your list of everything you need to do in some sensible order. You then have an in-progress column and a done column. And you have the general backlog. So things move from the backlog into the to-do column. And that happens via prioritization. So you have this long backlog of tasks. You've got your highest priority items right at the start, and you pull them into the to-do column. Then you move them in progress, and then you move them in done, and it kind of helps you track progress of the work. Design thinking is one of my favorite things. It's really, really focused on understanding the user and challenging assumptions and creative thinking. So the challenging assumptions is interesting. So when I kind of started off doing product management, I would think, yeah, of course the user wants that. Yeah, why would they not want that? Let's just do it, without having kind of validated that with the real people who will be using the product. And many times my assumptions were wrong. And it's really important to go and speak. Emphasize the importance of speaking to people who will be using the product. It challenges your own assumptions, and it helps you to make sure you're building the right thing that your user group really want. Just to put a couple of things from the list, it promotes a lot of empathy. If you're focused totally on the user, you're in your user research session, you're not bringing assumptions, and you're not saying, oh, I would do that, or no, the quickest way to do it is that. It might be the quickest way, but the users aren't doing it that way. It forces you to empathize with the way they want to use the product. And then once you have an idea of this is the user needs, you would then go and define them, understand and really articulate, this is the problem the users are facing, and these are potential things we could do, but I need to validate those. And I think I might need to do a bit more user research once we've kind of got a design or something that I can go and test with users. Then you ideate basically means to create like ideas for potential solutions for the problems you've noticed that your users face. And that's super important, that there's not one right answer, and coming up with lots of ideas is really, really useful, because it's not always obvious what the right thing to do is, and there should never be a one obvious answer. It's really important to promote creative thinking. Prototyping basically means you've not built the final thing, but you're starting to build a version of it. And this doesn't have to be a full working product. You could even kind of have design, like using an app like Figma or Sketch, which is usually what designers use to mock up their designs. And you could even share these with your user and say, hey, we haven't built the product, but this is what we're kind of thinking at the moment. What do you think about that? And that, again, saves engineering time and effort, which could be used once you validated the ideas by testing your designs with the users. And testing helps you to kind of figure out the solutions. So once you've got your working product, go and test it with users, see what they like, what they don't like, etc. So those are just a couple of frameworks. There are a bunch of others. If you Google kind of frameworks used within product management, you'd find a lot of stuff. So this is, I think, one of the last slides. This is around a bit of a case study. I've also added a link at the bottom. I'll share, I think I can share the slides with you guys after, or email this round. So Apple, again, I remember from this Slido, if I have a look at it now, like iPhone is one of the biggest ones that shows up on the Slido. So they are clearly a successful product company. They have built some incredible things that like are used in the day-to-day. And people often say once they use like an iPhone, they don't turn back. They're not going to use an Android. You get very stuck, or personally, I get quite stuck in my ways. Like I can't think of using an Android now. I wouldn't really figure it out as quickly as I would another iPhone. So how do they do that? Well, they basically imagine that they've like released the iPhone 12 and they're like, right, we must start thinking about iPhone 13. A product team is then formed. They pick or like the team is formed of potentially a bunch of the roles that I showed on the slide previously, the expertise that they need for the iPhone to be successful. So you can imagine engineers, designers, like people who do testing, QA, etc. They get these people together, and that's your product team. And you would also have in that team, I imagine, at a place like Apple, people who work within marketing, because once you have built that, how do you kind of go and excite users about it? When should we release a trailer about the launch that we're about to do? So you have your product team formed. They then do this thing called the Apple New Product Process. And if you look on the link, there'll be a bit more information about it, but it's basically a very highly rigorous plan to completion. Now, that is an interesting part because it kind of comes with the little separation I showed you with project management and product management. Having a plan is super important in both of those things, and having a rigorous plan with kind of timelines, the outcomes that we want, the outputs that we want, when we want to achieve this by, etc. It's a very tight plan and it's very rigorous. They then do this product review every Monday by the leadership team or the executive team, where the product manager or whoever is kind of managing that demonstrates progress to the executive team. And this shows that there is clearly buy-in from the exec team if every Monday they want to have a product review. It shows that everyone's aligned on the vision, everyone's really bought into it. And they do very strong loops of iteration. So once they've built a product, once product is done, it's then redesigned, rebuilt, and retested until they get to the point of this is exactly what we want to release. And during this entire rigorous process, they have two key managers who are maintaining oversight of everything. I think they are an engineering manager and then more of a sales and marketing manager. So you need to have some kind of oversight from someone who's kind of knitting all these pieces together and keeping good oversight of everything that's happening, because clearly there's a lot that's happening. And then lastly, you have the product launch. And I don't know, a bunch of you might have seen a lot of Apple product launches. They're super exciting. A lot of hype is built up around them on social media. So that's the kind of Apple way of doing things. Do check out the link if you want to learn some more about that. And I think my gift. So yeah, that's it. I hope that was useful, and if we have time, I'm happy to take any questions.
Brilliant. Thanks, Janny. That was really good. What I'll do now is I'll introduce Charlie, and then we can do all of the questions at the end of the session. Brilliant. So today we have Charlie with us. She is a product manager at NatWest, and she'll be talking to us a little bit about her role, her experience, how she got into it. And then also she'll be talking about the NatWest upcoming events that we have with Code First Girls as well.
Thanks, Krupa. And also it was really, really cool to listen to everything Chadney said. So definitely a lot of nodding heads from me there in terms of everything that's come through for the role of a product manager. Now you'll probably spot that I think if my name's showing up, it says product owner. In that little visual of a Scrum team and Scrum ways of working, you'll see that it's basically one of the roles in the Scrum team. So that's what I am as a product owner for NatWest. I work in the NatWest Pay It team, and Pay It is the product I work on is called Send In Payments, and our product is basically helping our commercial customers to pay their customers without the need to have or store their bank details. So it's essentially digitizing a check journey. So if I have your email address and your phone number, then I can send you money without having your bank details, and you can use your online banking and open banking technology to basically collect the funds. So that's the product that I work on. Day to day, I guess my role at NatWest, a lot of what Chadney's just said, which is great to listen to. But yeah, it's mainly managing that backlog and prioritizing that backlog based on customer needs, customer feedback, based on exactly like Chadney said, how the customers are using the system, where priorities would lie in terms of, let's say, not all. We can't solve every problem, and we need to build a product that's fit for all of our customers, so not just one. So we'll take that feedback into account, and if we see it coming from multiple streams, then we'll obviously look to make that as an improvement. But if it's just coming from one customer, then our product isn't tailored to just one customer, so we have to prioritize and make sure that we're doing the best for all of our customers. My favorite kind of tagline here is, you can do anything with the dev team, but you can't do everything. So we need to really prioritize and be really, I guess, particular about what we'll bring in and what we'll prioritize and how we'll move things up the backlog as they're working together. So day to day, I would say that's kind of the key part of my role, is managing that backlog, working with our Scrum team. So that will include our business analyst, our product team, business analysts, our developers, our testers, Scrum Master, and we'll kind of work through the priorities, what we need to build to make those features. So like Chadney said, a feature is just a particular part of the product that you'll focus on. For myself, I'm managing 3 feature teams right now. One of our feature teams focuses on the stability of the application. The other feature team is focusing on developing our web-based portal, so you can access our program online, or our platform. And then the other is working on our API. So we're building API functionalities so you can connect, or our commercial customers can connect their system to our system, and they can talk together without the need for logging in online to the portal. So that's kind of what I do day to day. And they're my priorities. A lot of stakeholder management, a lot of conversations and asking those curious questions. And then in terms of how did I get here, I don't really know. No, I do. So I guess my degree is in events management and marketing. I have no technical background. I worked in customer service, in kind of admin, hospitality. And when I was working in I was working in the entrepreneurship team for NatWest, and we had a lot of projects we were picking up at the time, and it's that project manager piece that Chadney was talking about. And basically, I just became a subject matter expert on our product, which at the time was a CRM product. And then it was a business builder, so NatWest Business Builder, which is an online platform that we built. And again, like it was just iterative. It just became, all of a sudden there was techie questions being asked and I was answering them because I'd been asking questions. And it's definitely that curiosity is key piece. So the more questions you ask, the more you know about it, the more you're the subject matter expert, which is really, I think, important in terms of building out the product and knowing, if you've asked all the customers, hey, what's your priority? Then it's knowing where you'll I guess build on from there and what the priority should be. So yeah, how I fell into this role, or how this role, I guess, how did I end up as a product owner? It was really natural. So it was just a progression from where I was in my current role. We didn't really realize it was a product role at the time. And then since then, this year, I've had the privilege of joining the Pay It team, which has been a great learning curve for me. So we've added in a whole bunch of financial platforms and technologies. So I've learned all about payments and open banking and asked a lot of questions about them, so that I can help our customers, again, help our development team, just help those conversations move forward, and help prioritize. So that's the how I got here. I'm really hoping, Krupa, that I haven't missed a huge part that I was supposed to answer, but you can keep me on track.
No, that was great. No, that was really good. I guess the final part is just talking about the upcoming courses that we have and events in NatWest as well.
Great. So we have 3 upcoming NatWest career switcher courses. They're starting at the end of September. They're open to all applicants who identify as a woman or non-binary, based in the UK, aged over 23, and graduated from school more than 2 years ago. There's more details on the Code First Girls website. So if you're looking for more information, you can have a look there. But the 3 courses that we have are the Introduction to Python Programming, Introduction to Data and SQL Programming, and an Introduction to Web Development as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. So now it's time to take on some of the questions. So we've got some of the questions in the chat. So I'll just put them up here. And then, feel free to take whichever questions. So we have this first question, which is, what was your journey into product management? So the degrees that you did, obviously, Charlie, you mentioned that before. So what was your first project that you had to do? How did you get into the companies that you got into as well?
I can jump in first. So for me, I actually worked for a company called Entrepreneurial Spark, and then the bank. Basically, we 2-pay transferred into the bank, so we moved into the bank, and it was a social enterprise. And then I moved into the bank working for the Entrepreneur Accelerator. But it meant that all of the infrastructure and the operations weren't set up when we moved in-house. So it just became setting up that operations, building out the foundation of what that looks like. And then it developed into, now we need a CRM system to look after our customers and our staff. And then we just built propositions from there and projects on top of it. So that was my kind of entry in.
Nice. I can just jump in there. So yeah, as mentioned, I also didn't do any technical degree at university. I did modern languages, and I still advocate that do the degree that you're really passionate about and just what you enjoy. So I did that. I obviously didn't go into university thinking I'm going to be a product manager. I wouldn't have even known what it was at that point. And I did a bunch of like various internships in a couple of banks, in doing project management, also at like an advertising company. And I kind of just doing those, which seemed like, when you look at the CV, it's so random. But as you do different things, you pick up different skills and you figure out, more importantly, what am I actually enjoying about these different roles? And I realize I love asking questions. I will ask anyone anything all of the time. I love doing that. And I also like to just like I do enjoy using my phone a lot. And I'm like, how can I tie these things together? Obviously it wasn't as deliberate. It was also an element of luck that's sometimes involved. So I started in consultancy, and I was staffed onto a project working at this FTSE 100 company, and it was with a development team, and they were building out one feature of a customer portal. And I obviously went into that thinking, I have no idea. I have to be here. It's my first job. They've put me on this project. I don't understand the difficult like tech these guys are doing. And then over time, like I just was like, wow, look at them building these things. Like I want to do that. And then I did this Code for Scales course. And then from there, I kind of thought product management was a bit of a natural fit, where you get exposure to the tech, and I'm complementing the skills that I really like doing, like talking to people, and like kind of organizing the way things are done. So that's how it happened.
That sounds like a really nice journey where everything just ended up falling into place, and it's really nice when that ends up happening. And we've actually got a lot of questions, so I'll take this one here. So is there a strong link between UX designers and product managers?
I can have a stab at that. So I think there is absolutely a strong link. I don't know if you mean in terms of kind of skills or etc., but I'll try and answer it in a few pieces. So UX designers and product managers often, as shown in the presentation, work within a product team. So that's one similarity. They're working towards the same vision. Another similarity, they're interacting day to day with engineers. Another similarity. So there are a bunch of things that, like, there are overlaps with the things that both of these roles do. I think there are, of course, differences. There are things UX designers can do that I certainly absolutely cannot do, and I wouldn't even want to try. And there are things a product manager does which a UX designer might not feel so comfortable doing, like, say, reporting back to the CEO that, hey, the product doesn't have as many users as we thought. That kind of thing is slightly tricky. But I don't know if the question maybe you want to know, as if you're a UX designer, can you become a product manager? Absolutely, yes. There are a bunch of skills you would have picked up as a UX designer, and just like kind of building on those and looking at kind of the diagram I showed before of what other skills are useful, and finding other places where you might be able to pick those up. And also, if you work in a company where you have product managers, speak to them, shadow them. I'm sure they'd be very happy for you to kind of do that with you.
Brilliant, thanks. So now this is more of a sort of career-based question. So what does a career in project management look like? How can you continue to progress your career once you've become a product manager?
So I guess this one's like very open-ended and broad, isn't it? There's so many different avenues on how you can keep progressing. Maybe it's continuing to work on the same product but building it, as in scaling that product to more customers. So that's one route, I guess. And Chadney, feel free to like jump in and say after this, but I would say scaling a product, that's one way to progress. I would say another way would be move product. You're gonna have to learn a whole new skill set every time you change product, which I've found, and that's what I've done this year to kind of take that next step for me. In terms of progressing, again, there's like, I guess, bigger products, there's bigger companies, there's different types of companies. Going from working in like a startup environment to a big global bank is going to be a huge difference. So yeah, there's a lot of different routes, I would say. But Chadney, if you've got anything else that you can add to that?
Yeah, I think basically agree with everything you've said. I think product management is sometimes different in various organizations. There's no obvious, like, you're a junior product manager now, you're a senior product manager. And I personally wouldn't advocate to think of it in that way. Just think of it as, how can I keep building my skill set as a product manager? And as Charlie said, like, changing the environment you work in to challenge yourself even more. So if you've worked in a large company where everything is quite structured, you know the product that you're working on, and you know the feature team that you're in, if you are like, okay, great, it's lovely having this, I've picked up a bunch of skills, let me kind of try out the startup world where everything's slightly chaotic. You're still figuring out, does the world want my product? Like, you can jump around a lot like that and grow skills, and you'd organically grow as a product manager in that way.
Brilliant. So let's do a couple more questions. So for someone who's new to tech, can they still be involved in technology-based product management? So do they need to know how things work? And what's the sort of scale up into learning how things work? So how do you actually learn the background of how this tech or API or something works out?
Ask lots of questions. Okay, so I had zero tech background skills. I haven't done any courses in tech. So yeah, sounds really cool. Totally love what you guys do. But yeah, I haven't done anything. And it started with, Charlie, can you sit in on this call? And I went on this call, and I'll be honest, the first call I sat on, it was with the development team. It was a daily stand-up call, and it felt like a foreign language. Like, I came off the call thinking, I have no idea what they were talking about. Like, I just felt a bit lost, but it didn't stop me from going back the next day and the next day. And I think 2 weeks in, someone was like, oh, I'll come onto this call with you. And I think they were expecting, same as me 2 weeks prior, just this call where we go and find out. And they said to me when we came off the call, oh my goodness, I have no idea what they were talking about. It's like a foreign language. And I took that minute and I sat back and I was like, I totally understood everything on that call. And it was like a little victory. And it's like, yeah, the more you learn, the more you're involved and immersed in that product world and that environment, the more you understand about the features. So let's say the API. I haven't done anything in APIs until this year. And that's quite high tech, right? Like, if you want to talk really developers or super techie and talking about it, it gets a bit scary. But I kind of realized, well, part of my job isn't to build that tech. I just need to understand how we get from point A to point B and how we deliver this value for a customer. So if you bring it back to now, if we talk about like a kind of a user story and an epic, these sounded like really scary terms to me before, but basically it's just user story is the big high level, what are we trying to deliver? And sorry, did I say the epic is the high level, what we're trying to deliver, and the user story is kind of like break that down into chunks to get that bigger section. And I can see you guys nodding, so I'm really hoping that was clear. But yeah, so understanding that epic level, hi guys, how are we getting on with point A? And if I'm not sure about something, I don't have to say it in front of everyone on a stand-up call. I have no idea what this is. You get to know the team. You can ask, hey, can you give me an insight into what this particular part of the tech is, how this works, how it connects, what does it actually do is a favorite question of mine. And yeah, it's like, you don't need to be involved in technology. You don't need to understand it. You just need to be willing to learn about it and ask the questions. And there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Awesome. So let's just do 2 more questions. So this one is, do you recommend a software engineer to go for a role for a product manager?
I can have a go at that. I mean, I wouldn't not recommend anyone to go for the role of a product manager. Like, if the role that you're doing kind of don't identify as like, I've done software engineering, I am now a software engineer forever and ever and ever. Think about it more as I'm doing that. I really enjoy these aspects of it. I think I want to like venture out and try these things. Again, similar to the first question, like maybe I can go and talk to my product manager, see how they got into it, and see if there's anything I can start to do to upskill or take more of a product management role. I don't know. I don't recommend it. I don't know. Not recommend it. It's just, if you're interested in it, absolutely, like, go for it, and don't think you can't do it just because you've been a software engineer. Think of it as I've done a bunch of cool stuff, and that's a lot of it is transferable, and there's a lot for me to learn as well. So yeah.
Brilliant. And then, so one final question here. So how does a product manager help prioritize certain tasks and help with communication between teams? Because both of you are saying that you have to talk to a lot of teams every single day. So I guess it's the case of being an excellent communicator. Is this a skill you have to develop as well? Or is this something you actually just brought into your role with you?
Sure, so I can try, and then I can see Chadney's thinking still. So how does a product manager help prioritize certain tasks? It's all about those conversations. So this prioritization piece comes from your customer conversations as well as conversations in the business. So, if you have an operations team who are managing the product, how that product works also affects them. So they're going to receive, maybe you've got a customer operations team receiving inbound inquiries or product issues. They're going to tell you and help you kind of find any pain points or niggles in the product. So that will help prioritize. Also, if something's difficult for them to do in the back end, then ultimately it's going to be harder for them to help the customers. So sometimes it's worth prioritizing those items that a customer wouldn't see, but would help your internal team. So in terms of that prioritization, it's about the conversations and just weighing up the value of a particular item in terms of the overall goal and that deliverable. And then in terms of help communicate between teams, I'm not entirely sure there's a particular way that you're helping with the communication between teams other than just keeping that open dialogue. So I work in an Agile Scrum environment, and we're very much a self-managed team. So everyone on that call, it has the power and autonomy to go away and do what's right to reach our goals. And so the right people are on those calls, but if they're not, and if there are questions, then it's a case of making sure that you kind of own that, take responsibility, and that you can come back with that kind of answer and response that's going to help the whole team to move forward.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What about you, Jenny?
Yeah, I think basically echoing everything Charlie said. I think with prioritization, there are a bunch of prioritization frameworks and approaches you can take. If you have a Google, there'll be a ton out there. Again, I think I like to think of it as what's the customer value, what's the urgency, and what's the technical effort required to do this, and create some sort of kind of scoring system with that. So is it a 1 in terms of value? It's not actually that valuable. It's just maybe it would be cool if we had that. Or is it a nice to have? Is it this is actually pretty useful, or this is absolutely critical to the user using our product? Think about it like that, and then think about it in terms of do they need to be able to do this thing within the next month? Are there any dependencies, and assign urgency in that way? And then work with your tech teams to be hey, this seems to be a high value task and it's pretty urgent. What's the technical effort required? What do you think? And involve them in that prioritization as well, so they feel part of the decision making, and that's super important because you do need their input throughout the whole process. And with that prioritization, it helps when your question, there are often times you'll be questioned as, hey, why are you guys working on that? It's not an attack, it's more of a, do you have a good enough justification as this is why we're doing it. We've spoken to customers, it's high value, it's pretty urgent because we've got this other thing coming up that's dependent on it. And it helps with those tricky conversations as well. In terms of communication, I think figuring out what method to use to best communicate things. Not everybody is open to slides, and I think there is a tendency to jump to let's make a slideshow, but not everybody wants that. Some people just prefer a quick Slack message. Some people prefer a call so they can ask questions. Figure out the best method, and don't do a method that you think applies to everyone. That just is the best method for you. Talk to people, understand what they want to hear and how they want to hear it, and that you can literally explicitly ask them that, and that would help a lot with the communication as well.
Brilliant. Thank you both. Thank you for such a great and informative session. We did all get the Product Management 101, and there's been loads of great questions as well. I've actually posted the links to the Code First Girls website and the MOOCs in the chat below. So if there's any that will interest you, feel free to join the event. We've also got the Career Switcher events that Charlie mentioned as well. So feel free to have a look at that as well. This YouTube video will actually be up for a week or two. So if you're interested in the slides or taking down more information or just want to rewatch it, you can just click on the link that we've got. But thank you so much, Chanya and Charlie. That was a really great session.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you.